Wake up your morning in a brand new way with the positive people, places, events, and things in and around your neighborhood and around the world. No matter where you live, your mornings are about to get better. It's the refreshing way to start your day. No doom or gloom, just bright sunshine no matter what the weather. Metro Magazine with Bonnie McDaniel. Inspiring, informative, intelligent, Ion. Positively the best way to start your morning. Good morning. I'm Bonnie McDaniel and welcome to Metro Magazine. As we continue our focus on music and the impact it has on our culture, I am so pleased to welcome to the studio this morning a young woman who is very dynamic and she has a voice like an angel. You're going to be as excited as I am when we introduce her in just a moment. CECILY is a young vocalist and songwriter whose sweet soprano and honest lyrics have garnered attention and loyal fans not only here in her native Washington, D.C., but up and down the East Coast. Unmoved by passing trends, CECILY's sound is rooted in a deep appreciation of mid-century soul and jazz, 90s R&B, and reimagined folk music. She describes her style as acoustic pop soul and has drawn comparison to artists as distinct as Denise Williams, Brandy, and Corinne Bailey Rae. Welcome to Metro Magazine.
Thank you for having me.
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, you
Okay,
did.
I said CECILY.
Yep,
okay, because
exactly.
when you look at it, it almost looks like a Sicily or something like that.
Yeah.
So CECILY is the correct pronunciation. Yeah. And I look at you and I'm thinking, okay, she's in high school, except I had read your resume before. So I keep those good genes. It's
right?
Good. It will serve you very well when you become my age. So CECILY, tell me, you grew up here in Washington, D.C. Give me a little bit of background about how you came to be CECILY in terms of music.
Yeah, well, I grew up, like you said, I grew up in D.C., and I actually lived in Annapolis, Maryland for a long time. Okay. And I remember when I was about 12, I saw a sign that said that they were going to be offering voice lessons at the Arts and Cultural Center near my home.
Okay,
and so
in Annapolis.
In Annapolis, okay. Right. And so I asked my mother if I could take voice lessons. And funny story, she actually looked at me and she said, well, can you sing? And I was like...
That's a logical question
right.
my mom would ask.
I thought it was unfair. I was like, if I want to take piano, you wouldn't be like, can you play? But, I guess with singing, it's a little different.
Right,
So I went and I practiced a little bit. And so I came back and I sang something for her. And she was like, oh, okay, you can take voice lessons.
Okay.
So that was at age 12. And I took classical voice all through high school and in college as well.
Okay.
And in college...
Stop you for a second. How did you know you could sing? Because a lot of people are tone deaf. You knew you obviously had something. I've heard people say, oh, I have a lovely voice, and you hear them, you're like, okay, I don't think you can hear very well. So tell me, did you practice with your friends or your siblings?
No,
How did you know there was something there?
I was very shy. I sang for myself because I like, it's just fun to sing. Okay. It feels good. The vibrations going through your body always feel good. They make you feel good, And it's fun to kind of hear your voice reverberate in a room. So I used to, just sing at home in my room all the time. And sometimes people would hear me, my father would be like, oh, you sound good. And I would be like, I didn't want anybody listening. Okay. But occasionally people would stop me and be like, oh, you sound good, Okay. So I guess that's how...
It's interesting you mentioned that you said that you were shy, and you immediately made me think about Michael Jackson because they said he was very, very shy. And it's like this other personality happens when you're on stage. Talk about that.
Well, yeah, there is some of that. There definitely is some of that. I like to think of it as when I'm on stage, I'm more me. Than a different, than an alter ego type of thing. So
it's your ultimate way of expressing yourself is through your music?
I mean, I think it is a little bit of an ego trip too. It's like you get, people are listening to you, you get to tell stories, you get to, kind of play with people's emotions a little bit, and I don't know if you're into astrology, but my rising sign is Leo. So I like the attention of being on stage. I really do.
I have to tell you I'm a Leo.
So you understand.
Yeah. I do, but it's interesting that you say that. I don't think I'm so typical. I love creating fanfare, and then I like to stand back and watch everyone else enjoy it, which is kind of interesting. Right. So I guess maybe that's my way of getting attention. I don't know. is getting the praise, if you will, from people when they enjoy whatever it is I do.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Definitely.
that's interesting. So I'm sorry, go ahead and continue. But you were saying that.
Oh yeah, so I mean, I do enjoy being on stage, and it's kind of like a high. And I think that's what kind of drew me into singing was when I finally got over the stage fright. You know, I remember the first time I ever performed by myself was when I just started taking voice lessons. I was like 12 or 13, and I had to sing one song just in front of my parents and the other people who were taking lessons, their parents. It was a very small room. It was like, it was a recital, like 15 people. And I was so nervous, I could barely breathe. Like in between each line, I was, I was that nervous. Yeah. And I remember by the time I graduated from high school, singing in front of people didn't bother me anymore. I felt very comfortable. It was definitely a transformation just from doing it all the time.
Okay, so were you in chorus in high school?
Yeah, I was in a classical chorus and also in gospel choir.
So what made you choose classical? What is it about that that genre of music that attracted you?
I don't even think I chose it. I think it's what was available to me. Because when I wanted to take voice lessons, I remember talking to my sister about it, and she was like, I was like, I want to take voice, but I don't want to do classical. I want to sing R&B. And she was like, well, you can take classical voice lessons and still sing R&B music.
And it's interesting. I've had a number of people sitting in the seat that you're sitting in right now, and also interviewed them in other settings. And of all of the genres, classical music is by far the absolute best foundation you can give yourself, because it does parlay, as you probably discovered, into a lot of the other types of music that's out there. So
definitely,
if you had to describe or differentiate between R&B and classical in terms of what you learned, or how did it help you to develop your singing style? What?
Well, I think for me, classical singing, taking classical voice lessons helped me develop and get in touch with my upper register, which is something that people comment on a lot now.
Talk about that upper register. You're talking about that soprano voice?
Right, exactly. The fact that I can hit, fairly high notes. I'm not like a mini Ripper Chin or anything, but, I can hit some pretty high notes, and people always comment on that. And that's something that I don't think I would have been able to do if I haven't been taking classical voice for so long. Because the technique that they teach you in terms of how to raise your soft palate, and how to make sound resonate in your face, those type of things. And, it's just really helpful. It's really helpful. In terms of R&B, I started taking, for about a year, I took lessons with a guy in Maryland who does mostly gospel. And so from him, I kind of learned more about how to do runs, like, that type of stuff. And, how to do blues riffs and stuff. It was more about ear training.
Right.
So I kind of already had the technical foundation. It was just about learning, like, a different way to approach the melody.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So talk to me about gospel, because you said you were in gospel choir. How did that differ from R&B and classical? What's the difference there in terms of learning and technique?
Well, I think what was interesting, at least the way that, because I was in classical choirs and gospel choirs simultaneously in high school.
Interesting.
So I think the biggest difference was in classical, in my chorus, we had sheet music, and we looked at it while we learned the song, and we had to she also made us kind of learn how to sight read as well. In gospel choir, we learned everything by ear. Okay. And it was a different type of blend, because when you're singing with a group of people, you always have to blend. You want to like not sing too much louder than the person next to you, and you don't want you to be like a little bit off and then not work together. In classical choir, we focused a lot more on blend, and I feel like in gospel choir, there was a lot more in just letting each individual voice be heard within the whole. So yeah, definitely differences. And like I said, I think one was good in terms of, just getting my technique down, and also, you know, learning how to read music. Another one, I really learned how to use my ear better, just because we're learning everything by ear. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and while we're on break, we're going to hear some of your sweet sounds.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
Stay tuned. You're going to hear a little bit from our wonderful guest, Cecily, this morning, and we'll be right back with more Metro Magazine.
Up to 40% of businesses never recover after experiencing a major disaster. Make a plan at ready.gov/business.
If you're just joining us, we're here with Cecily Brumby. Did I get that right?
Cecily Brumby.
Okay, I totally screwed it up. We're here with Cecily this morning, who's talking to us about her journey into music. And Cecily, when we went to break, you were just kind of differentiating between the types of music that you've studied. So I want to put you on the spot for a moment. Okay. So you said you sang a song for your mom. Do you remember what that song was when you were 12 years old?
I remember it was from Vivian Green's first album. Okay. Because I was listening to that on repeat. I don't remember what song it was, though. Okay. But do you remember that album? It had Emotional Roller Coaster on it. That was like the lead single. I don't remember what song that was, though. Okay. But I know it was off that album. Okay. Yeah. And as far as that, we can't put a sticky note on, but talk about the first song you sang, because I guess it was from your classical training that you did your recital. It was actually a jazz standard. Okay. And I chose it because it was one of my mother's favorite songs, and it was goodness, what is the name of it? I can only give you love that lasts forever.
Okay, you're gonna have to sing that.
And the promise to be near each time you call.
Wow.
And a love whose burning light will warm the winter nights. That's all. That's the name of the song. That's all. It's called That's All.
Wow. You know, I'm listening. You have some really rich. The tone is amazing. We're gonna sing that song in just a couple of minutes, because that was really good. I love that song. It was a very, very nice song. Yeah. So talk about your education after you left high school. Yeah. You graduated from Swarthmore. So talk about your time there.
Oh, well, you know, it's funny because I was actually, their graduation is coming up this weekend, I think. So I was actually like thinking about that the other day, because it was a very difficult school. I mean, it's just hard. It's one of those schools that can be very strenuous. So I actually studied political science and Black studies as well, African American, African history and culture. And it was, you know what? I'm very grateful for it, because I know a lot of people who've gone to school and they come out with a degree and a few more years of maturity, but they don't feel like they learned a lot. And I can honestly say that I learned a lot, and that my worldview changed as well, and that my whole mind and my eyes expanded when I was in school. So I'm really grateful for the experience.
And you know, it's interesting that you bring that up, because school is not, advanced education is not so much about the curriculum. You need the curriculum, you know, in order to graduate. And yes, if you're going to be a doctor, you need to learn how to, you know, become a physician. Right. But when you're studying, I think one of the most important things that you get from attending college is, first of all, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn how to manage yourself, but you also learn discipline. And the tougher the school or tougher the curriculum, the more disciplined you become. And discipline is very, very important. And you begin to appreciate discipline as you get older. Yeah. Because you can't do anything unless you're disciplined. That's very true. So I think that if I had to venture a guess, I would think that a lot of what you learn helps you now in terms of the work, the singing that you're doing, because you need to be a very disciplined person. Yeah, in order to be a performer. So talk about that for a moment, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, right now, because my album did technically come out yesterday.
Oh, wow. So, did you have...
I have some in my purse.
Okay, we'll grab that when we go in the next break, because I want to see some of it. I meant to tell you if you had album covers or CD covers and whatnot, so we can let everyone see. Definitely. But talk about the album then.
So yeah, I was just going to say that I've just been, this this week and the next couple weeks have been very strenuous and required a lot of discipline because I right now am managing myself.
Are you?
Yeah,
okay.
Which I think is good. I'm learning a lot. You know, I'm learning a lot.
What are you learning? Are you focusing on the business of it, or are you focusing on, you know, just getting those bookings? What are you learning about?
Everything.
Okay.
I mean, I'm learning. I also don't have a PR person right now. I'm thinking about changing that, but I'm learning a lot about PR, about how to market and brand. You know, just working with people. I'm kind of running my own business, you know, so I have to hire people and find people for different things. I have to learn how to pitch myself. I need to learn how to understand and write contracts. It's, you know, in the music business, it's you have to know what the expectations are, and you have to know, you know, okay, so if I'm going to do this show here, what things need to be in this contract? What am I looking for? You know, what things do I need to request? So I'm just learning a lot about just the industry and how it works, how it flows, where the money comes from, what organizations and companies make things happen. And
do you have mentors that are helping you?
I do have mentors.
Okay. People who are in the business, or yeah, because that's always important. One of the things I have said throughout my life is I've always had someone who was mentoring me. The moment you get to the point where you think you know everything, you're in trouble. You always need a mentor. So it's good that you found someone. I know the woman who brought you to me, April Payne, she's an absolute gem. And I'm sure you know that she knows a lot about the business that you're in and could possibly be one of those mentors, at least in one aspect or another of what you're trying to do. I want to get a little bit personal. If I ask you questions that you're not comfortable with, just say, you know, I'd rather not answer, and my feelings will not be hurt. So
no
let's talk about your parents in terms of, you mentioned that your dad drove you out here. And so I immediately thought, oh, wow, he's looking out for his baby girl. So talk about the impact that your mom and your dad, because your mom was the one who said yes to the voice lessons. Let's talk about your dad for a minute. What, if you had to describe to us the most important lessons you learned from your dad in terms of being a young woman, what would that be?
Well, he loves it when I'm on time, which is one reason he drove me out here today. He's big about that. He's big about being on time. I think that my dad is kind of I'm trying to think how to say it exactly. He's more of the silent type, you know. He's never lectured me, you know. I kind of more learned through example. And he reminds me of my grandfather, his father, in a lot of ways. And then he's the type of person who's just going to get things done, you know. Like if it needs to be done, it's going to get done. He's not really into complaining a whole lot about it or, you know, making it a big deal. It's just, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And that's something I've definitely learned from watching my dad.
So I would say, if I had to sum it up in one word, you learn responsibility from him, and that you have to, number one, I guess, do what you say you're going to do, or do what needs to be done, as you stated. So your mom, talk about your mom.
She's awesome. And it's funny because Mother's Day just passed, so I was just reflecting on like all the things that I've learned from her. She's really, really smart. Both my parents are incredibly intelligent, and because of how they grew up in the time period that they grew up in, they know to never let people take advantage of them, and that's something that, because I'm a very nice person and I tend to be very easygoing, so that's something that I've definitely learn from watching both of them, is not to let people wall over you, not to let anything that you don't think is just or someone's trying to cheat you, like don't let it slide by and don't let it happen again. And that's what I like about my mother, is that she's very sweet, but she can be very hardcore if she needs to be. She can be very fierce. Yeah. But she's also like very giving, very generous and loving, you know? Yeah.
Gosh. And so the voice lessons, I want to go back to that for a moment. Was there ever a point where she said to you, okay, you need to earn part of this, or you're going to, did she bargain with you in any way as it had to do with the voice lessons, or no?
No, actually. I think she's just happy I found something I like to do.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, I took dance lessons when I was little for a little while. My sister's more the dancer, but my sister like, you have to take dance. I took dance and I took piano, and that never stuck as well. I think she's just happy that I found something I liked.
Something that you liked.
And then I was really interested in, and I never played sports either. It was always kind of from the point that I was 12, it was always just music activities. So yeah.
So if you're ready, that song that's all. Okay. Are you ready to do that one for us? She's like,
oh,
no,
goodness.
Don't do
You're
that.
really putting me on the spot. I don't remember all the words.
I was about to ask you because there are a lot of words. Yeah. Okay, I won't do that. So at this point, you have to choose something, because I love that song. I'll tell you, I'm being very selfish. I wanted to hear it because that's a beautiful song, and you do it very, very well.
Thank you. I actually haven't performed that song since then either. I probably should add it back to my repertoire.
You should. I mean, it will probably do a lot for you, considering the fact of, that it's something that's from your mom. Yeah. So let's talk about your new CD. You want to do something from that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Let's go for it.
Okay. Should I do it a cappella?
You want to take a quick break and get set up for it?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and come back, and then we're going to have Cecily perform something from her latest CD. We'll be right back.
Don't you want to know how I got here? Don't you want to know why I stayed here? And don't you want to hear this story of love? Watch it grow and slow. Don't you want to hear the drama? Don't you want to hear the pain? Don't you want to see the smiling faces? How could they leave your heart unstained? But it's too much for me to bear, and it's too fresh in my mind. How can I write a song about love gone bad when I can't even grasp what we had? 'Cause it's too much for me right now. So you wanna hear a love song, but I have nothing to say. I've been in the same position for a long while, and I don't know how much longer I can stay. Trying to put the pieces together, but they just don't form a verse. And the chorus I got is too much to rehearse. But I know you wanna know how I got here, and I know you want.
Cecily, when we went to break, I put you on the spot and I was asking you about singing your mom's favorite song. So we're going to regroup and talk for a moment about your latest CD, which is awesome. You must get this. I love it simply because you all know I love flowers, right? So I love the cover.
Thank you.
And you were telling me that you had a photographer who did the photograph, and then someone who did the actual CD design, who's out of Nashville, who does, I guess this is this person, a woman, is it?
Yeah.
That's what she does.
Yep.
Yeah. beautiful. Look at that. I absolutely love the design. And the inside, I love this photograph of you. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're on your way. This is your very first one, right?
Very first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the journey to getting this done. Ooh. Why did you decide to do it now?
Okay.
And just talk a little bit about the CD.
Well, I've been trying to do it for so long, and I finally got to the point where I could finish it with a lot of help from friends and family and fans. I actually did a crowdfunding campaign last year.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, using this website called Indiegogo, which is similar to Kickstarter. And I raised $7,000.
Okay.
That helped me get the CDs manufactured, record 3 more songs, get them mixed and get them mastered, redo my website,
And your website is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I saw that. Yeah.
So, it's been a long process, and I really wanted to release this in September, actually. That was my goal. And it's funny because I remember last spring someone asked me, someone who was a fellow musician or in the business or something, I don't remember who it was, but they asked me, when's your CD coming out? And I said, September, October. They said, add 6 months to that.
Right.
That's when your CD will come out. And they were right.
You know what?
Right.
That's the case with most things. You set these dates, and then it's like all of the the unknowns happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And you kind of
that's
had
how it happened.
to readjust.
I'm a perfectionist. There came a certain point where I had to let go of some things. I'm just like, it's fine, But there were some things that I was like, nope, we got to go back and do that again. Nope, I want to re-record that whole song. No, we need to add something else in this part, or we need to cut out that part, or I need to re-record that vocal line, or it just took a while.
Wow.
Yeah. But I'm very proud of it now.
No, it's a very good looking CD. I can't wait to listen to the entire CD. And you've done a wonderful job on your first debut, if you will.
Thank you.
So, Heaven in Your Eyes, is that all of the music on here you wrote yourself?
Well, I don't actually play an instrument. I fool around with piano.
Not the music, I mean the songs.
Right, yeah. All the lyrics and melody I wrote, except for the second song, Used to Being Love. That's actually from a songwriting team from Nashville as well. Okay. And
what's the Nashville connection?
I don't know. It's just
I know they do a lot of great music down there.
It's just a lot of good music. Actually, the woman who wrote it, her name is Jeannie McQueen, and she's a friend of the producer who produced the song. Okay. So that's how it got to me. But all the other songs I wrote myself, and they're all pretty personal as well. So.
Heaven in Your Eyes, talk about that.
That is actually it's the most upbeat tune on the album, which is why it's the first one, really. It features a rap by Tabby Bonet, who's another DC artist. And it's really about just being vulnerable and telling someone how you feel about them. It's just telling someone you have a crush on them, that you're falling for them.
Okay, okay. And Real Love. Yeah,
that's probably the most personal song on the project. I wrote that about being in a long-distance relationship because I was in a long-distance relationship with a guy. He's still a very good friend of mine, but in Ghana. I met him when I was studying abroad there, and we dated for about 2 years. And it was just, I wrote that about just being in love with him despite everything, despite the distance, despite having disagreements, despite people asking, like, why are you in a long-distance relationship? What are you thinking? You're only 20-something, So that's what that song is about.
So I assume you said you're still really good friends, that the relationship ended?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, everybody comes into your life for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so whatever the both of you needed, I'm hoping that you got it. So, and you're still friends, and that's a very good thing. And you talk about that one.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorites when I perform live, and an audience favorite, I should say. People really love that song. Okay. And it's also about a romantic partner, but it can be, the lyrics to the chorus can be about anyone. It's basically, I'm singing to someone who's done so much for me, and I'm so thankful. I'm saying, you are the light that makes me shine. You're the reason I survived. You're how I came to breathe, and you are why I'll never leave. That's the chorus. So yeah.
Okay. And Never Enough.
Yeah. That one is about what a friend of mine calls a situationship. So it's not quite a relationship. It's more just like a situation. And it's basically what the title says. It's talking about how that type of situation is never enough, you know?
Okay.
Like, I miss you, and I want to see you, and I want to be close to you, and I want to make love to you, but I'm still unhappy.
Situationship.
Right.
I'm going to have to add that to my vocabulary. So, what are you going to sing for us?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is another one of my mother's favorite songs. So, and we were talking earlier before we were on camera about music and justice and how, you know, the message is so important when it comes to music. So this song in particular is one of my favorites.
Okay.
I'm just going to sing a little bit of Black Butterfly by Denise Williams.
Ah, okay.
All right? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Morning light, silken dream, take flight as the darkness gives way to the dawn. You've survived, now your moment has arrived, now your dream has finally been born. Black butterfly, sail across the waters. Tell your sons and daughters what the struggle brings. Black butterfly, set the skies on fire. Rise up even higher so the wind can catch your wings. Let the current lift your heart and send it soaring. Write your timeless message clear across the sky so that all of us can read it and remember when we need it that a dream conceived in truth can never die. Butterfly.
Wow. You're making me cry. I know I'm a bucket of water. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were talking off camera about the impact that music has on our culture. And you made me think of many, many things. And I know this past weekend, for instance, last weekend, Prince did a concert in Baltimore. Were you? Oh my gosh. I couldn't go because it was Mother's Day and my husband had something planned for me. But I'll tell you, when you think about the power that words have in and of itself, but when you add melody and music to those words, it really does change things. And I was mentioning to you that was one of the main reasons why I chose a concert series for Songs for Justice for Gideon's Promise, to really talk about the importance of justice to our country and to the world.
Yeah.
Talk about, if you will, what is your idea of justice, and do you ever think about using your voice with the music that you've been given to change the way things are? Talk about that for a moment.
Definitely. You know, when I think about justice, and it's funny that you brought up the Prince concert, because one thing he said that night is he was talking during Purple Rain, actually. He started talking, and he said, you know, we need a new peace in this country.
Right, yeah.
And he said, and I'm talking about PIECE. And I think that is really what it comes down to, is it really is about economic opportunity. It really is about economic justice. And I was actually listening to a radio program the other day, and they were reading from a new book about Martin Luther King and the last few years of his life. And you know how that was his next step, was, the Poor People's Campaign, was talking about economic justice. And I think that that's what we're getting further and further away from, especially since the early 80s. It seems like this country, we're getting further and further away from, truly having equal opportunity for people and prioritizing that. We have so much wealth disparities in this country, and it's growing and growing, and the richer are getting richer, and the poor are either getting poor or they're staying where they're at, and wages aren't increasing fast enough. And it's, it really is a global issue as well, because everything's global now. Everything's global. And I really have been thinking more about how to use my voice, how to lend my voice to get that message across, to help people reprioritize justice.
Let me ask you, because I have my own opinions about why some of the things are the way they are. And you're talking about economics, because economics then lead to a lot of the other issues. You talk about justice, unless you have the money to be able to afford to defend yourself, you're pretty much sunk. So let's talk about leaders, because you're in your mid-20s, and in your opinion, looking at the leaders in our community, the African American community, number one, do you think they're failing our community? And number two, if so, in what way? And the third question is, what as a young person would you like to see them do differently, if anything?
I think where we're failing overall is in education. And I'm not even talking about, kids dropping out of school, or I'm talking about, because honestly, I feel like if the school is not teaching things that are really relevant, or teaching things that are not reinforcing a person's self-worth, that it's actually more harmful for them to be there than not. That's personally how I feel about it.
Wow, interesting.
I think that we really need to look at radical forms of education. And when I say radical, I just mean education that doesn't reinforce the status quo as being the only thing possible, or as being valid. I think we need to teach young people that, there's a different way to reimagine this world, and that we can actually create that if we are able to reimagine it.
But how do you go about doing that?
Yeah.
Given the conditions, especially when you talk about inner city, what are some ideas or things that people can do to help kids reimagine, even though they're living in a certain environment? What do you think some of the things are?
I think some things are being done. I'll give you two examples. My nieces are 14. They go to Duke Ellington School of the Arts, actually. And I look at the books that they're reading in just their freshman year English class, high school freshman. And a lot of those books I didn't read till I was in college, and only in my Black Studies classes. They're not things that I was given the chance to get to know. Books by people like George Nelson, who's like a very important, Black culture critic, and books by James Baldwin. They're reading James Baldwin at 14.
Yeah, and I'm going to stop you for a second, because I remember both my children at different stages were in private schools and at different stages in public schools. And one of the things, my husband and I we're very much into African American studies and just knowing who we are. We're both very avid readers. But one of the things that we made certain of is that we as parents did not depend on the schools to educate our children about themselves.
Yes.
So I hear what you're saying, but I also know as a parent, because I have adult children, that there is a collective responsibility, if you will, of parent, community, and of the educational system to educate our children. So talk about that and how we need to reimagine as those who are educating children, our parents, those who are responsible in communities, churches, or whomever that, touches them. Talk about that for a minute.
I mean, Yeah, my parents definitely did a similar thing. I mean, they were always having me. I remember one year in my school, we weren't doing anything for Black History Month. So my mother made me do a presentation to the class on, it was about.
We did the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that important thing to say is that you also had the resources to do that for your kids. And my parents had the resources to do that for me and my sister and brothers. And I feel like what we need to do is the people that do have the resources, we need to help out. Because when you're in a, when you're working a minimum wage job and you have to work, 60 hours a week just to pay your rent, or just to buy food, you don't have time to sit down with your kids and, talk about Black history. You don't have time to sit down and talk about anything, really, It's just trying to keep them in school, trying to keep them fed, and that's what you're focused on. And I feel like, so those people who do have the resources to supplement, the community, help the community out.
And that's where I wanted to go to next, because you're absolutely right. There are a lot of parents out there who they're just trying to make sure their children eat and sleep every day.
And a lot of them had parents who were doing the same thing.
Exactly.
So they might want their kids to have something different, but they don't really know where to start sometimes.
So talk about community. How can this community help to serve better?
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said earlier, mentoring is really important. I did that all through college. I was a mentor and a tutor. I'm still now a mentor and a tutor. I have a friend who's an amazing person, and she runs her name's Prashona. She runs a homeschool program for grades 3rd grade to 8th grade. And, I think that's a really important model to kind of just because a lot of us complain. We complain a lot. Our kids aren't teaching us about ourselves. And I mean, our schools aren't teaching our kids, what they need to know. But we're not creating new models. And so when I met her, I was so inspired because she's actually creating a new model, reimagining what actually could be, And I think that that's really what it takes. It's people who have the mind and the energy to do that, and then we need to help them get the resources.
And going back to the Prince concert, because I did read the interview, I read an article in him talking about us getting that PIECE, and that's on so many different levels. Because I think, a lot of people talk about the burning down of buildings, of businesses, and all of the rioting and things that went on. I think at the very core of what makes a person does that in the first place, it comes from someplace deep within. And if there isn't anything for you to reach to inside of you in terms of your self-worth, it allows you to be able to imagine doing something like that. Because no one's told you, I don't know in the situations that a lot of the people, grew up in, I'm not privy to that. But I do believe that those people who have been exposed or taught that, you're worth something, it makes them think twice about doing something like that. And because it's so, I think, it's so prevalent, if you will, in a lot of the poor communities where they're just struggling trying to get by.
Right.
And people don't realize that every day. And so they judge or make comments. And no, absolutely, it's wrong. But they make comments without really understanding why that person is in that situation, why they think the way they do.
Right.
That's
definitely true. That's definitely true. I would just add that I think even more so, it's just about not having a voice, not feeling like no one is speaking for you, no one is listening to you, because people forget they had peaceful protests in Baltimore a week leading up to that incident, and
at the same time that was going on, there were also peaceful protests that were happening.
And it's also, I think that the burning down of the CVS and other places, broken windows and things, it was more of a, I honestly feel like those kids were pushed into a corner. They got out of school and there were already cops in riot gear standing around them, you know? And when you already have this anger inside of you, you want revenge. You want revenge not just for Freddie Gray, but for your cousin who got killed by the police, or, you know, all these stories we never hear. Your friend who got ridden around in one of those trucks and you know, bumped up against all the walls or whatever. There's so many stories we don't, the rough rides. Like, I mean, we're coming in, we're looking in with, you know, and we don't know the stories.
Exactly.
Because there's so many stories that are just, that are not being told by mainstream media. And so there's a lot of pent-up anger and aggression. And you just, you know, sometimes you want to break something. And I understand that. I understand that. I think that, you know, I definitely see both sides of it, in that there was one woman they interviewed who was helping to clean up at the day after. And she was saying, you know, it's really unfortunate. I live in this neighborhood and now, you know, people don't have a pharmacy, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. I understand, you know, something's missing now and you lost a resource and it's going to be harder. You know, there's seniors who live in that neighborhood are going to have to go further away to pick up their medications. But I think also that we need to not prioritize property over lives. And that's what we see a lot in the media happening.
And, you know, and again, I go back to the question I asked you earlier about your taking your talent and using it as a voice. I was blessed to have gone to an evening with John Legend where he's talking about the mass incarceration of our people primarily, and talking about the reasons why that is. And them not having a voice is one of the primary reasons why a lot of people are in situations that they should not be in. And I mentioned to you earlier the organization that I'm working with, Gideon's Promise. It's not so much that they're trying to go and get people off who've broken the law. It's not that at all. They're making sure that when someone is arrested, whether, you know, they've done it or not, they are by law and by right allowed to have a voice. But unfortunately, because of the way the system is and because of the culture that is present within the criminal justice system, they're nothing more than numbers. It's process them, get them in here, get them out. We don't want to know where they came from. We don't want to know that they really were on the other side of town when this crime happened. Just get them in, they were arrested, get them out, lock them up and throw away the key. And I think a lot, and I think a lot of the frustration that allows people to respond, going back to Baltimore, is that, you know, what difference does it make? You're not hearing me anyway. Maybe you're here if I set a torch to a building. Again, not justifying, because it's clearly wrong, but there's a reason why people react and do things in the manner in which they do. So if you think about CECILY and imagine, you're talking about imagining situations being a certain way. If someone said to you, CECILY, you can use your voice today to do whatever in terms of changing our culture, what would that thing be?
I just want people to love themselves.
Okay.
It's that simple.
And how do you go about doing that, helping them to love themselves? You're one person, and I want you to speak as CECILY, but also maybe inspire someone else out there who's listening to this interview.
Right.
You're one person. How do you do that?
You know, I think that a lot of times we find it really difficult to be vulnerable. Especially when you live in a city. I mean, everybody though, you know, because you're just going day to day, you know. You're having hard times, you might have some good times, but really you're just going day to day. You're just going. You're just trying to make it through. You're just trying to keep moving, you know? And whenever you can have a moment to be still and sit with yourself and get to know yourself again, I feel like it's truly, truly valuable.
So do you think the noise interferes with that? And again, I want to go back to these young people or people who are living in a city where there's this noise all the time. It's never quiet.
It's never quiet. It's never quiet. There's so much noise pollution. It really is. There's sirens everywhere. There's people yelling. You might hear gunshots sometimes. You know, it's like always noise. And it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
It can be really exhausting. And I think it is really, and a lot of people don't have access to live music. That's really a disparity that I've noticed as well, is that there really is kind of like, I don't know, it seems like there's not equal opportunity when it comes to enjoying live music. So I think that, and people forget how healing it can be, because sound vibrations really are healing.
You were talking about feeling the vibrations when you sing.
Yeah.
So talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, there's, because I told you I studied abroad in Ghana. I was there for about 5 months. And there's an instrument, it's a xylophone. It's a wooden xylophone. They call it a geol. And part of what's special about it's sonically, is that they put these gourds on the bottom, and they put spider webs over the top of the gourds. So when it vibrates, it buzzes. And I remember I first learned about the instrument when I was in college, and they talked about how the buzzing is supposed to be healing.
Interesting.
And that's how it made me feel when I heard it. The first time I ever saw it played live, that's how it made me feel, I was like, oh, wow, it's healing. And that's how I feel like sound is supposed to work, It's not supposed to be all sirens and yelling all the time, I think, those sounds can be important as well. I mean, I try to be inspired by everything a little bit. But we really need to get back to the healing properties of music, which have to deal with how the vibrations hit your body,
Going to sound, I was joking with my production manager, saying to him that, off camera, that my husband took me sailing for Mother's Day.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a Florida girl, so I've always been on the water in some way or another, but sailing was different. You didn't hear that, because most of the time I've gone on the water, you either have a paddle or the motor, and it's making noise. The sailing is very different in that you're paying attention to the wind, and you're feeling the wind, and you're adjusting the sails, but it's almost like you're working in concert with the sound that's around you. And I said to him, I said, I can see now, I want to be a little old woman that lives on the water.
Yeah.
That's what I want, because I'll tell you, I'm very, very busy all the time. And I cannot remember the last time I was in that state of just being totally zen.
It's where, a meditation.
Oh my gosh, I have not felt like that, and I don't know when. And I didn't realize it until I felt it. And it was hearing, and I go to the beach all the time in the summer, but being on the water and listening to the waves and feeling the wind and really hearing the wind and the waves at the same time. It just
working in concert with the wind.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the most, So I really do have a new vice. I'm going to become friends with somebody with a sailboat, because I can't afford one right now, but it did something to me. And music does the same thing. For instance, when I work, I always listen to classical music if I want to do deep thinking. If I want to be creative, where I'm looking at colors, or, like for instance, if I'm looking at a client site when I'm branding them and looking and trying to determine if the colors are working, I put on a different kind of music, because it kind of gets me up and bouncy, and it helps me to feel the creative part of what I'm doing. Yeah. So music is a very, very powerful tool to use in so many ways. And, I am so glad that you're here. One of the things that I love about my work is I get to meet some of the most amazing people. And I can say, over the years, I've been doing this show for 5 years, I probably only had one guest, and you're going to have to guess who it was. That I was like, yikes, I don't know if this was a good idea. Only because it's an hour-long show, and the person was wonderful, but sometimes you just know you're not in the right space, either of you. But I can say that I've been very blessed. I've met some amazing people over the course of 5 years. You're absolutely one of them. I brought you here to talk about your music, which you did, but there's so much depth that I'm still looking at you. It's like, okay, how does she know all of this? You're 25. And when I look at you, you look like you're in high school also.
I know.
But, again, I told you before, hold on to that. You're going to, when you, 20 years from now, you're going to be like, oh, God, I'm so glad I look like this.
Right.
Because, yeah, good genes.
Good genes, right.
Does your mom
Thankful.
look like, you look like your mom?
I look exactly like my mom.
Oh, my gosh.
I do.
Yeah, so your mom has good genes. You got it from her. But we're going to, if there's anything else you want to talk about in terms of the music, for instance, talk to people about your website, how they can reach out to you to book, because you were saying that you're doing a lot of your marketing. So let's talk about, first of all, your website. What's the web address?
Yeah, my website is CECILYmusic.com, which is my name, CECILY, CECILY, and then the word music, MUSIC.com.
Okay.
And there's a contact page on my website where you can reach out to me about booking. Also, if you're just a fan and you want to say hi, or if you have a question, you can definitely reach out to me through my website, and I always respond. So.
Based upon what I've heard here this morning, I think you're going to need a booking agent like yesterday, because you're going to, first of all, you're going to get some of the weirdos out there.
Yeah, I know.
You probably encountered them already.
My mom keeps telling me that. She's like, you need to be careful.
Yeah, you do, because there are some very interesting people out there who see life different than you do. Yeah, so you need that buffer in between you, if I can give motherly or mentoring advice for just a moment. In terms of appearances, where are you going to be? What's coming up?
Yeah, anyone in the DC area, I am going to be next at Blues Alley.
I'll be there.
In July 29th. It's a Wednesday. I'll also be on at Mr. Henry's, which is on Capitol Hill. I'm really excited to be there because that's where Roberta Flack used to perform all the time.
I love her.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she is yes.
So I will be there on August 22nd.
Okay.
And I'm also planning to go to Chicago and New York and Philly and Charlotte this summer as well. So.
And we're going to have to see how we can book you for the Songs for Justice concert series.
I would love that.
Yeah. So we're going to be in touch so we can add that to your calendar. So basically, if they want to find out where you're going to be performing, they can go to your website.
It's all listed on my website in the upcoming shows section.
And this is dropping, you said today or tomorrow?
Yesterday, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now it's available through my website and also through my Bandcamp page. And it'll be available on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, everywhere else next week.
Support a sister. She does great music. And I am so glad that you chose Metro Magazine to come and share a part of this launch.
For having me.
And I want to encourage you to keep that mind that you have. I'm sure there's not a chance that it's going to go anywhere. Your folks did a wonderful job. And that's going to wrap it up for us this week on Metro Magazine. I know that you could have been any place, but you chose to spend your morning with us. And for that, I am truly grateful. So please be sure to tune in next week, same time, same place. And I will see you on the flip side.